Welcome back to a new episode of Sustainably Interested, where we explore the potentials of turning hobbies and interests into more sustainable forms. I'm Anna, the creator of SUSTA-IN, and today we'll be exploring a hobby of mine, cooking. Cooking is basically part of my daily life, and I would like to incorporate some aspects of sustainability into it. For this video, we'll be doing things a little bit differently. We already know that adopting a vegan diet is part of living sustainably, and unlike the previous videos, we're not treading in unfamiliar waters. So to go beyond the simple questions that we've been asking ourselves, why not ask what can we do better? Here's my list. Reduce single-use plastics when purchasing ingredients. Try to use homegrown vegetables or plants, and don't use the gas stove. And while doing this, I would like to show you some sustainable habits that we've been doing around my home, and just enjoy cooking the usual food that I cook, adapting them to be as vegan as possible. So join me as I try to adopt a vegan diet for one day. So, I'm following my mom to the Sunday market today. I'm planning to get soy milk, tofu, pumpkin, and some scallions. To reduce the usage of single-use plastics, I prepared beforehand a few containers, a glass bottle, and a used clean plastic bag in my mom's trusty market bag. Let's go! My experience at the market was quite pleasant actually. The vendors were happy to comply with my request of using my own containers. Although for one part, I thought I only could buy a whole pumpkin, but apparently I can just purchase half. So I got an extra plastic bag because the pumpkin flesh was exposed. It was so easy to switch over to not using single-use plastics in the market. It makes you wonder what is holding other buyers back from making a conscious decision to change. So today's the day I'm gonna be vegan for a day. Just going to grab my usual breakfast, some quick oats and drip coffee. Here in my house we have a compost because my dad enjoys tending to his garden. After I finish making my coffee, I dispose of the whole thing in the compost bin. The only change to my breakfast is substituting cow's milk with soy milk. I chose soy milk as my plant-based milk because it's much more accessible price-wise. To be honest, if I woke up this late, I wouldn't have had oats cause it's lunchtime really soon. So I'm just gonna have a few mouthfuls and keep it for tea time. For lunch today, it's just me eating. So I planned something experimental, which was to cook tofu chicken. The process started yesterday night, just squeezing water out of the tofu and freezing it overnight. I took it out to thaw as soon as I woke up, and now it's just going through another round of squeezing, kind of just dehydrating the tofu. Meanwhile, I'll cook some rice. One thing that we do in my home is that we collect the rice water in this bowl for the first wash of our vegetables. Today's vegetables are from my dad's friend's garden. It's sweet potato leaves. These are relatively easy vegetables to grow, but they are really tedious to wash. So while I wait for the tofu, I'll be picking out the leaves and separating tough stems. Whew! That took me at least 20 minutes to finish. I remember why we hardly cook these at home now. And of course, the unwanted stems go into the compost, and the water we use to wash vegetables goes in this bucket for my dad to water his plants. Now back to the tofu. I just need to season it, put some flour and into the air fryer. The other dish that I'm making is pumpkin and curry leaves. I got some leaves from the front garden and chopped the pumpkin behind the scenes. Now it's time to start cooking. We usually use the gas stove over there to cook, but we actually have an induction cooker in this corner here right beside the washing machine. That we mainly use for just steaming food. Using a new cooking tool proved to be a challenge. Right away, I didn't control the heat properly and ended up burning my minced garlic. Knowing that there is a higher chance of burning my food now, I proceeded with caution and cooked my pumpkin with care. In the meantime, the tofu chicken was done and they were a bit floury and dry to taste. I decided to toss in half into the pumpkin dish, hoping it would provide some more moisture. And finally, we get to cook the sweet potato leaves. The pan was too small to fit all the vegetables. I could have just left out some to fry later for dinner, but I didn't know why I insisted on stuffing everything into this tiny pan. Hence, the dish that usually would have taken less than 5 minutes to cook took twice as long. And by the time I finished cooking, it was already 2:30 in the afternoon. Hungry and hot from the kitchen, I tested my new dish. To my surprise, it was actually really good. The tofu was slightly burnt, but the texture of some of the smaller pieces really surprised me. It was good, but would I cook it again? Yeah, maybe. I would, but with earlier preparations of the tofu, and never again as a combo with the sweet potato leaves, because it is really too much work. And now for the dinner menu. I'll be cooking Korean soft tofu stew. It's something that I frequently cook for my family because it's an easy one-pot meal. First, I'll boil the broth with some kombu and frozen Chinese shiitake mushrooms. Usually, I would be making a ikan bilis broth with mushrooms. After it's done, a dash of MSG. This dish isn't fully vegan because of the kimchi, but I gotta make do with what I have, right? It was still a struggle to control the heat using the induction cooker, but I'm not as panicked as compared to during lunch. I cut up the mushrooms I used in the broth and added that in. And now for the main star, the tofu. And it's done. Pretty quick meal. At least we're having dinner on time today. I'm having dinner with just my dad today, and I let him taste some of the leftover pumpkin tofu from lunch. It tasted even better after steaming it to heat it up because it no longer has a dry, floury exterior. We both enjoyed the stew with some leftovers from lunch. And that concludes my day eating and cooking vegan food. I wouldn't say that there's much difference to my usual diet, as my family tends to eat more vegetables than an average family. We enjoy our vegetables, so it wasn't really a tough time adopting to a vegan diet. I wouldn't mind incorporating vegan days into my weekly schedule, as well as the reducing of single-use plastics for shopping. And there's one thing that would be hard for me to change, and that is using the induction stove instead of a gas stove. But I think it's a matter of getting used to. That's all from me. I hope you enjoyed this different approach to sustainably interested. Okay, bye!